Hey, 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 welcome to Be in the Light once again. Yeah, we've made it past the permission to suck zone, so maybe this will be a really excellent one. I'm super stoked about our guest tonight. An old friend of mine and a fellow seeker of the light, John Drury, and we're going to be discussing passion tonight. And very, very excited about that. Before we get off into any of the meat of the show, I want to acknowledge and thank our sponsor, Fried Okra TV, Ernie, and all the guys and girls and peoples and animals at Fried Okra TV that do amazing, amazing documentaries and commercials, films. Really badass company, and I'm trying to talk Ernie into coming on and showing some of his stuff and sharing that. So thank you guys for your support, and we look forward to continued love in the future. So I've been really talking to a lot of people the last couple of weeks, and yesterday was first day of Mercury retrograde, and a lot of people scoff at that. Oh, that's just silly, man. But I have seen like 20,000 communication snafus over the last 24 hours. So if you guys are out there experiencing like like breaks and like things having a difficult time getting through, just have some extra patience. No, it's not you, it's not the other person either. It's just the energy of the moment. Take an extra deep breath, leave some extra time to get where you're going. Traffic jams are a real lover thing, and if you've got stuff that's just right on the edge of breaking and you've been trying to like hold off, just be ready for making some changes over the next 3 weeks. So I was speaking to a good friend today, and they were just in the pits. And we talk a lot here about being in the light and what that actually means, and living in the energy world, and realizing that the energy that you are is a piece of the actual source of the original energy, and that you have that connection all the time. Every moment of the day, you're creating your own universe, and the energy that you're exuding is creating the life that you're living. So, I thought it would be a really cool thing to kind of dedicate this video to this person, and it's called faith. And sometimes faith is not just believing that it's just going to happen like that. Sometimes faith is believing that your connection is really good, and that even though it looks like it might not happen, it's not going to happen. It's over. Having faith is that belief that no, it isn't, and that your connection to that goodness and that infinite ability to create is always there and in your own hands and your own choice. So without further ado, this is a song called Faith. Yeah, little technical difficulty.
You're gonna have to mute your mic, I think.
What?
I think you're gonna have to mute because I'm in the same room. I think you're gonna have to mute because I'm in the same room. If I turn the volume on, it's gonna reverberate.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Okay, a perfect Mercury retrograde moment. So you're just going to have faith without getting to see faith. So pretty funny. I'll have to chalk this up on the list. Yeah. Anyway, want to say hello to Jilly. Always good to see you. Leah, what's going on? Leah and I, as I've been mentioning, are putting on a 420 yoga sound journey event. We'll have grounding and cacao ceremony and some live readings, and it'll be a real energy fest and a great day to pamper your soul. So I've been putting out posts and events things on it. So take a look and come on out and spend a day with us. I think it'd be really, really fun. So I've been talking to a ton of people lately, and I keep asking the same question, and that is, what is your passion? And that seems like a really super easy question for me to answer, but I realize that not a lot of people have a quick answer for that. So I'm stoked to introduce an old friend of mine. We go back like 30 years. And man, it has been a crazy ride over the last number of decades. And we both, when I met John Drury, John was the head of the ad agency, one of the partners in the ad agency that hired me. And we struck up a crazy friendship and have kind of a creative vision symbiosis. And it's been a really productive and joyful relationship over the years. And as I started my own spiritual energy quest, John started his on kind of a parallel version and went off and has become a really well-known facilitator and does a lot of shadow work with groups and individuals. And I am just beyond honored and pleased to have John with us tonight. And without further ado, my good friend, cohort in crime, John Drury.
Hey, Brian.
What's up?
Appreciate the intro. Good to be with you.
Heartfelt.
Yeah, hopefully won't we have any of the retrograde stuff happening to us here.
You know, we probably will. So let's just be ready to say thanks. That may be the theme of the show, you know.
Yeah, so if I just see your mouth moving and I can't hear you, I kind of know something's happening.
Yeah, that would be a good indicator. So how's the world treating you, John?
You know, life's in a sweet spot, Brian. As I mentioned to you earlier when we just first connected before the show, one of the things that's really important to me is health. Because, you know, health is foundational to everything we do. And I'm just grateful that my health is good. And I work hard to take care of it, too. So
I was going to say, that's not something that just comes by itself.
No. So, you know, I put a lot of effort into it. I turned 70 this year. So really working hard. Yeah. Really working hard to take care of myself and paying attention to it. So the first part of health, which to me really supports the other things that I do, has been really solid for me. Debbie and I have been together now, you know, my wife, this 47 years. So, you know, working in that relationship and being together for that amount of time is amazing. I've got two girls, Lauren, who is now 41, and Jenny's 40. And Jenny has three girls who are 14, 12, and 9. So
Jenny was that big when I first met her.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
They were just kids back when you first met them.
Yeah.
And so the family part is really solid, and I'm just grateful for the family part. And then the workflow for me has been really good. So I get a chance to do what I love to do and work with.
Tell us a little bit about that. I did a really poor introduction as far as what do you actually do. Share some of the actual things that you do with your facilitation.
Yeah, well, you know, when you were talking earlier about the light, I would say the essence of my work is about bringing the light to the dark. I just help people who are unable to see things about themselves in their behavior and the things they do, not because they don't want to, but just because they don't know how to.
Right.
And so I'm able to navigate that in a way to help bring light to that part. So I totally resonated with your, with how you opened the show around that. part, because that's essentially what I do, is I bring light to the dark. Now, the way I go about doing that is through facilitation work, and the facilitation work is predominantly with leaders. So I work with an organization called WPO, Young Presidents Organization, and they have chapters throughout the world, and they bring together these leaders in forum groups, and these forum groups meet every month, and then they do retreats every year. So I facilitate those retreats, usually a day, day and a half, and help them understand in that environment how to explore themselves in a way that they really haven't ever done before. From that retreat work will come executive team development work. So I'll work with executive teams, and there'll also come coaching work. So those are really the core parts of my work: is the retreat facilitation work, executive team development work, and coaching work. All of it is really centered, though, for me, around bringing the light to the dark, whether it be a team, whether it be an individual, whether it be a group, whatever it is.
And it's funny, we're again on a parallel zone. I do a show on Monday night called the Angel Channel, and we've been actually doing energy practice sessions, and part of that has been guided meditations. And last week we did a ride down into the subconscious, down into the cave of your inner self, and took our light with us and shone that in like all those really kind of spooky shadow chaos worlds. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I know that part of what what you're known for is work with shadow stuff, and I wanted you to talk about that a little bit too, if you
Sure. Sure. So that's in large part the shadow got identified by Carl Jung. So in Carl Jung's structure,
Red Book, please tell me.
Was that
the Red Book?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I can't read the Red Book. I mean, I've got it over here, but it's just like, it's a beautiful book to look at.
Yeah, but it's a beast, man.
Yeah,
and I did my own version of that about 8 or 9 years ago, and I took almost a year to do it, and it was some of the most significant work I've ever done, ever.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, so I'm not
I'm
not a therapist, and I'm not a psychologist. So I think that's important. But I have studied his work, and that his work is foundational for how I think about how we have developed as human beings and how we operate. And one aspect of that is that when we're growing up, those parts of us that were not accepted, we repress them. So we push them down into the shadow. And that part of us that is in that shadow becomes a very important part in how our behavior can show up. And sometimes it can be very dysfunctional. Sometimes it can be unhealthy. And so the work in the kind of our human journey is to be able to go back in, reclaim the power of that shadow. It's not a bad thing, right?
Exactly.
It's just the thing that got down there and repressed in a
when you accept it and actualize it and make it part of you, instead of it being a separate thing that's running amok, doing whatever it wants to do, when you assimilate all of that into a unity.
Right.
Sorry.
No, that's I could see you're passionate about that.
Yeah.
And that work, first, most people don't know even that's the work. And when you start talking to them about it, it doesn't initially make sense. But so I've created a process that helps to understand how they can get to it in a way that makes it more accessible and easier to work with. But the journey is essentially, to your point, is to be able to look at it and to be able to integrate it into who you are. Because the more you push against it, the more you create resistance, the more power you actually give it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's just funny. It's like we could be talking. Yeah.
Yeah. That shadow work is an important aspect to the work in helping people see how that affects their behavior and what they can do to.
Well, even if you've done all this work on your conscious zone and you've like made all these things, but you've left that part of you unaddressed, then there's never going to be a flow. There's still going to be chaos. I mean, all of those things down there are like, the repressed programs from our childhood, the things we've been taught by our parents, people we've met, our religious things. When I did mine, I grew up a Catholic kid, so of course I saw all the demons and the devil and the whole 9 yards, and going through each one of those steps and addressing that, especially the things that you're fearful about, and,
Right.
and those fears are really pretty primal because they're in like the deepest zone there is, man.
Right.
And when you go and stand in front of those and take that power away, oh my God, you're so free. It's like, thank you.
Yeah, and also to understand that some of those deep-seated beliefs just aren't true about you, or they just aren't true.
Yeah.
Right. And when you can see that something that I have a deep-seated belief in that's really not true is also freeing to know that, because many of those are self-limiting beliefs that impact our ability to access our power as humans and to be the person we're really capable of being, or to really be the person that we are, not the person everyone told us we should be.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is going to sound like a really crazy story, but this it has been pretty profound for me in the last year. I went through a few months of some really intensity, and part of my practice has been being able to become aware of energy bodies and auras and things like that. And the second band of your aura, which is your emotional band, you're always getting input all the time. So it's always in motion. It's always fluctuating. It's always reacting to stuff, even your dreams. So taking that information from those, oh shit, I just lost my train of thought.
You were saying that you were going through some work yourself.
Oh, yes. So in your second band are all these little points of energy. Like that's where everything in your body starts. Like your light body's half of you or more. Your physical body's you. And it's so much like your light body is your software, and all these little points of information that are things you were born with, choices, emotional content that like you bore in and like burn those in, and that's how you think you are, and that's what you like go, oh yeah, okay, that's who I am. And that color of that happens in that second band because it's so bright. It's kind of the predominant color when you first look at somebody, and like mine was really like this gas blue, like right as it's coming out of the flame, and it had been like that forever. So I'm in the middle of this situation where I could not find a solution. No option was good. I had every option had a really awful thing about it. And as part of my practice a few years ago, I had learned to be able to change the color of my aura for a little bit. So I went back to that, started working on that, and changed my color. I also have a lot of orange in my aura, and I changed that to really being bright orange with just a little blue. And I realized at that moment that I was looking at exactly the same scenario, and my outlook was completely different. And because those set points moved, the light moved, the color vibration was now a different frequency. And like, oh my God, like it's the you think is you and solid is infinitely changeable at all moments.
Yeah.
So
that's, the part of my work that I help people look at is you mentioned software. In fact, I use the analogy that, our brain is this incredible piece of hardware that we all got. And growing up, we got a software download. All right. And that software download includes our belief systems, our emotional wounds, Those traumatic experiences that are part of those, emotional wounds are fears, and those are not the healthy fight or flight fears, but those fears like, you got from the Catholic Church, those kinds of things.
Exactly.
And you at an early age did not have the capacity to discern what was good for you and not good for you. So I couldn't turn to my dad and go, well, hey, that lesson you're teaching me about heaven and hell is not going to really serve me at 40, but thank you. I'm not taking it, right? So we take it in and we believe it to be true. And so it's really just a big story. It's just a bunch of stories. That software system, which is a lot of lines of code, are just stories. And my ability to be able to examine the story, and I can be the architect of a different story. So to your point about changing a color or changing a lens, by changing a lens, it can be done through a new story or a reframe of a story, or shifting a story helps me see something completely different. I'll give you a quick example, Brian. As you know, when you mentioned of being a partner of the agency, my primary role at the agency was on the sales and business side of things, and Stan was the creative side.
Right.
I never saw myself as creative. And in fact, anytime I would go back into the creative part, it was like, you're a suit, get out of here, leave us alone.
No, that's not true, but go ahead.
But along my journey, one of the facilitator I was working with heard me say that about myself, because I said, I'm a business guy on the finance part. I'm really not creative, right? And he said, well, why would you say that about yourself? I said, because, if you think about framing creativity, at least the way that I saw it, was I was not an art director. I was not a writer, was not doing what Mike Jenkins did from, the computer work, or I was not a part of that creative space that way. So part of it was boxing in what creativity looked like and telling myself I'm not. So he helped me reframe that story. Instead of saying I am not creative, it was my new story was I am creative, but in my own way. These are two very different lines, but one is closes down possibility and one opens up possibility.
Opens them up, exactly.
Opens it up. And that led me to, I bought an Apple computer, I hired a guy to teach me Photoshop, started doing artwork.
Did that book, didn't you?
Yes. That
was a badass book too, by the way. I love
2 books from that work.
I was like, wow, these guys got it going on this. It was really
that
great.
led to photography, led to buying a camera, and today creativity is a huge, huge part of my life. And one that was not there that way, only because of a belief system I had about myself, that by changing it, it completely changed the lens through which I see the world today, because I changed that story.
So the very first show of this series is called, and it's how to get in touch with your creativity. It was called Permission to Suck. It's like doing it big, not caring, just finding the way you do it, like taking the biggest swipe you can with no holds barred. Learning from that, coming back on the second one, you got it pretty good. The third one, if you've learned from all of those, you're kind of in the groove then, and giving yourself that permission to just, first of all, it's not about anybody else. It's about regurgitating your own processing of the world as you've experienced it and putting that truth back out in a piece of art that someone else can relate to. So giving yourself the permission not to have to look like you're an artist to anybody and look like a creative person by whatever that definition was. By the way, you were a champion of creative work, man. You may say that you weren't, but you were still you had really great ideas. I loved coming into meetings with you and hashing through stuff. That was really amazing. And when I watched you start to go on your own journey and that bloomed for you, I was just like, wow, that must feel amazing. And your photography, dude, your photography is really beautiful, man.
Thank you.
I love your perspective and your point of view. John shoots a lot of portraits or at least that's what you were doing the last time I really saw a volume of your work.
Yeah, I'm focusing 100% of my creative time now on portraiture work, and predominantly black and white. I really love the just how it works for me and how I can express portrait work in that medium. So I'm really honing in on that area to become a master at it.
Yeah, I've been light painting.
Yeah, I noticed.
It's like,
yeah,
it is so addictive. I can't even begin to tell you. And, I like brought all of this, painting with pigment my whole life. And when light painting happened for me, and I'm like waving around a fiber optics brush in the black, and painting with actual light energy, it just, man, it just became my medium. I love doing it. It's just it's like, that's my spot.
Yeah.
Took me a long time to find my spot, but that's my spot. Oh, so about Christmas time this year, I started doing some acrylic
wow.
aura paintings, and I've been doing light painting on top of the aura painting.
Wow.
Do you have any of those pics up? My erstwhile producer and friend, Jacob. I need some Jeopardy music. Da, da, da.
Well, I've got a lot of your photos.
Well, I meant the 8 or 9 I sent you this afternoon.
Yeah, we can do those.
So I've really been in the angels in these wings.
Beautiful.
Yeah. This is an LED strip, a 30-foot LED strip that I was like swinging around on and lit up a mannequin. And it's so like energy, dude. Look at the juice spewing out of the solar plexus.
Yeah.
There we go. Selfie.
Look at those eyes.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're just so alive, Dia.
Yep.
And you know what? I don't know if you feel this way. I'm sure you do. Every single time I sit down, like I'll go through and shoot stuff, and I'll find a couple on the back of the camera to go, oh wow, that's really it. But then you go and sit down through and start to blow them up big, man. Every single time there's this surprise, like wow.
Yeah.
And that never, ever, ever gets old. I feel so grateful that I have that,
Yeah.
What a passion. Which is a great segue into passion. So I really have been talking to a lot of people and asking that question, like, what's your passion? Mine is to create. As long as I'm creating something and have something to look forward to like explore and do during the day, I'm really a happy camper. Keeps me alive. It keeps me feeling like I'm in my 30s instead of 138. And I wondered if like it's normal for people not to have a passion, or if like that's abnormal for me or out of the norm for me, And when I met you, the slogan for the agency was "Passion Rules," and that meant something back then. I'm sure 30 years later that means something different now. But I'd love for you to just kind of explore that topic and what's your passion? Do you have any advice for anyone on how to find their passion if they don't have one?
Yeah. So I think it's an area that's confusing for people. So and it gets confusing depending on the words you use. A word like passion, or a word like purpose, or a word like being inspired, motivated, right? So people can attach different meanings to those words. So someone, if you were to ask them, what are you passionate about? And say, well, I'm passionate about playing golf on Sunday. Well, is that really a passion? The way I might define passion or purpose? So when you're defining your passion for the light creativity that you do, I don't think it's like a golf game on Sunday. right?
No, no, I actually have to. I have to do it. It's not like, you know, and if we have time, I've got a little mini meditation I want to like give out, and you know, let people kind of consider that, because it like if it went to like. You know how many people these days, there's all this AI, like what's the point of doing any art anymore? And, you know, like it doesn't really matter. I don't do it for anybody else. I love it when other people relate and connect, but it comes out of me as like, I mean, it's kind of like food, you know, I don't know. Yeah.
And it can be different things. So for me, my work and how I work with people is incredible. So when I bring that light to the dark, my core, the thing that I love most is when someone gets an insight, when I can see them in the moment where they go like,
yeah, I love that too, right?
and so for me, when I can bring that to somebody, because I know that insight is the shift that can take place to impact someone's life.
Yes.
I like working with leaders, so I work predominantly with CEOs and owners of companies, because if I can bring that light to that level, the ripple effect that it has on their families, their communities, their businesses, and their world is huge. So it has I see and envision the work of that insight having a ripple effect out in the world, right? That for me is very fulfilling. And so I'm deeply moved by the work, and it's very purposeful for me. So I would define that as a purpose, very purposeful, very meaningful, and it's a way that I contribute to the world and having an impact by doing that. Now, many people also find purpose in the work they're doing on influencing and impacting others. I feel like when I'm in that work, I'm serving others.
Right.
The creativity work, the photography is all for me, right? So it is a way that I can manifest my own thing, a way that I can dive into deep curiosity and just explore and see things differently through creative work. That, to your point, I don't do it for others. I don't sell it. I don't do it for anybody. I just do it for me. So is there a serving component to that? Could be, right? Depending on how it might touch somebody, because I know people who are photographed to put it up on their wall. And
I think it serves people when you put your truth in the world.
Yeah. So it does maybe, but I don't go at it the same way I do my other work. So I do feel it is a deeply purposeful pursuit for me for a different reason than I do my other work. So I think people can find a space where they are inspired, where they're fulfilled, where they are feeling the connection, not just experiencing it in their head. They feel a deeper spirit part of themselves that can help them identify what that might be for them. I do feel inside all of us, there is something in there that is connected to that for all of us. Sorting out what that might look like and figuring it out for many can be scary, because it means like what I'm doing might not be it, and I might need to take a left turn to go do something else, right? Or they might not believe that they're good enough to go figure out something like that, or whatever it is that could hold people back. I do feel we all have it in us. There is an assessment that I use that I find it to be a very helpful assessment and a very good one that can put language to what might be what gives you juice, right? Or what gives you some form of when you're in it, you feel it and you like it, and it's called it's called the spark type assessment.
Yeah.
So if anybody that's listening wants to go do that, just go look for the spark type. Google it. You'll find there's a book connected to it. There's a very simple online test. There's 3 different spark types. and tells you your primary one, then the one that's in support, and then the one that you're not going to be very good at. I know when I did it and I looked at it, I went, holy shit, that really gave me some insight on how to put language to the work that I do.
That's
how I'd express it. So that's a pretty, I feel that's a pretty good tool to help start to get clarity on what that might be for you. Once you have that, then you have to go figure out, like, all right, how do I go apply that? How do I go do that somewhere? That's usually the work for many people, is figuring out its application.
You know, one of the ways I'd throw out to people, like, what would you be doing if you didn't have to do anything? Like, if you didn't have to, like, worry about money or like anything in the world, and all you had was you, your light, and a choice on what you'd really love to do, what would that be? You know, and surprisingly enough, I don't think many people have thought that much about that.
Have you ever heard of the Ikigai process?
The Ikigai? No.
Yeah, let me see if I've got it here, Brian.
The Ikigai process.
Yeah, I'm probably not doing it justice on its pronunciation. Okay.
Oh, there we go. Okay. That's probably right, actually.
Ikigai.
Yeah.
And it's a really simple process, but what it looks at is 4 quadrants of what you're good at, what you get paid for, because those can be 2 different things.
Totally.
Right? What the world needs, which could be something different. Let's see, what you're good at, what the world needs, and then what you're passionate about.
Right.
And at the intersection of those, if you can find, because I found that what I'm doing today is I'm good at it, I love it, the world needs it, and I get paid for it. If you can put all of those together, that's magical.
Yeah, it's bliss. It really is. It's bliss.
This has done a really helpful, when I'm working with people who struggle with kind of putting that puzzle together, we look at the different pieces. Or what are you good at? What do you get paid for? What are you passionate about? And what does the world need that you think the world needs?
How would you define passion?
I can only tell you for me, because I do feel it's, the way I define it for me doesn't mean that's true for everyone else.
Yeah.
Right?
Granted.
Because how people experience things
would
be different. Or the reason they may be motivated to do something may be very different. So I'll give you an example. I'll see people who have come out of trauma environments, and because of the trauma they experienced growing up, whether it be some form of abuse or something that happened, they are committed to serving those people and helping others to avoid that trauma, or somehow help people who have been in it to heal, right? So their own trauma experience is what's creating who they want to be and who they want to serve, right? I don't have that, so I'm not. It's hard for me to describe that as purposeful, because it's not mine, but it would be for them, right? So I don't think there's one way, but for me, I do think there's an element of it that's connecting with other people somehow, serving other people, having some impact in your world or in your community, or in some space. It's not something that can be just isolated by yourself in a room. It means interacting with other humans somehow. And then what that is that gives you energy. It might take away energy, but it's not draining it negatively. It's not a toxic negativity.
Yeah, but don't you find when you're in that flow, you're spending energy, but it's bringing it back as fast as it's going out. Yeah.
So there's a recycle thing going on there, but it's draining too, but it's also incredibly fulfilling. So I do think that people, to me, there's no simple one explanation for it. but there is a place where when you find it,
Yeah.
And it originally came to me, Brian, when we were doing a retreat, and the facilitator said, "You wake up every day, do you love what you do?" And this is when I was chief marketing officer at AutoNation, and I was like, I like what I do. It's interesting, it's challenging, but I don't wake up every day saying I love car advertising, right? I mean, that's coming from my heart, right? It's like, no, it's not. But I didn't know the answer to the question. I didn't know if I did wake up every day and say, man, I love this. I wouldn't know what it was, or I didn't know how to describe it. And it took me a couple of years to sort it out. And I needed help because it wasn't something that was just intuitive for me. I didn't need to have.
Where'd you get that? Where'd you go for that help?
I went to a facilitator, the guy who was actually facilitating that retreat, who raised the question.
Okay.
I said, I need your help. I want to sort this out. I want to know the answer to that question. And it took me about a year to get clear on that, and then another year to get some education and parts behind it. And then I did another year of kind of putting my toe in the water and doing some practice around it. And then when I started doing that, I fell in love with it. So it's not something that, for some people it is. For some people, like when you found the light work, boom, you felt it. Right?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah.
Now, that work though wasn't just something that happened in just that moment. This was
that's what I was
like 30, 40 years of your creative spirit and thing, and then boom, when it happened, so it was accumulation to that moment.
Perfect description. Yeah. Perfect description.
Yeah. And so for some, and for me, the answer wasn't an outside answer. It wasn't like I had to go find it somewhere. I just needed someone to help me look at the evidence of my past, to help me find the answer that was already inside and put it together. So it's in there for most, I believe. And you got to want to know it. You got to want to go figure it out, because someone's not just going to give it to you in a book, and I can't give you a magic pill for it. I can't tell you how many people who go like, yeah, I want to know that. What's the answer? I said, well, now you know the question. To me, the most important part is to know the right question.
Yeah, exactly.
Know the right question, and you can pursue the right question. And if you want the answer to that question, you will find the answer to that question.
That's exactly right.
All right. So for those of you,
the question, the sneaky right? question, the slippery question. What's the good question?
That's where I think most people, they don't know how to ask really good questions.
True.
To find clarity around whatever they're in. Finding a path through is really, I believe, many times a deep sense of knowing how to ask really good, curious questions that can help unfold.
And be prepared for the answers.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you can get to, like, how many times have you seen people get the answers and they don't like it, or it's too hard, I mean, I don't know if you'd agree with this, but everything that's really been super meaningful and intense and like becomes a personal truth for me has been earned with effort.
Yeah.
Didn't just happen.
Yeah. The journey is, you got to put it, the things that are worth getting to are going to take work. It just takes effort,
So I wanted to say hey to everybody out there, and if you guys, I'd love for you to share what your passion is, and shoot that off if you don't mind,
or if there are any questions.
Yeah, questions, awesome. That would be really great too. Hey Rick, good to see you. Glad you're out there, my friend Jilly. Yep. She's going to get sparky. Thank you. So we've got a few minutes left here. This is something that has just kind of run me over like a freight train. And I'm looking at this whole AI scenario happening right now. Any thoughts, feelings, as it seems to be not only taking over the creative genres, but filtering out into everything. And it's like, what are people going to do?
Yeah. So I think if we look at past history, when there is a new technology or something new that people don't know about or are afraid of, or there's uncertainty around it, there's going to be some resistance to that. This is happening, so it isn't anything we can go, well,
it's already happened. It's
happening.
Not happening. It's already happened.
Yeah, and it will continue to evolve into more. It's going to continue to evolve.
Exactly.
And so just the recognition that it is, you can decide what role it can play in whatever your creativity is. So I remember when cameras came out and there was a digital camera, how many people who were into film said, or when Photoshop came out and people were using Photoshop in photography, well, that's not creative, because it's not, and how these technologies evolved and how there was resistance to these different phases. Where for me, I use digital, I use Photoshop, I use Lightroom, I do all kinds of ways to express my creativity. And so AI may or may not be a part of that for me, but I get to choose and how I want to use it. Or other people who are using it may be their way to creativity. I think the important part is that for people who are using it to not say that it's one thing when it's really another thing.
But that's the natural progression of it, and that's already happening in really ways.
It's so you just own what you're doing for what it is, and a lot of AI work is beautiful, right? And it's opening up new avenues of creativity. So I'm certainly not an AI guy at this point because I've not spent the time to learn it. I'm sure.
Yeah, have you done any of the graphic stuff, or do you use GPT chat or any of that stuff?
Not yet. I'm sure that I will. I just haven't really had time to sit down and dive into it. I'm sure that there'll be points in my life where I'll tap into it and it'll serve me in some way, but I don't see it as a threat to creativity at this point. I really don't.
Well, I might have a bit of a different.
That's why the world turns, man.
Like the spark of your own visualization in your own mind is the thing that begins the spark in the astral that then begins to materialize stuff. And that ability to be able to see something in your mind that is so clear that you can actually put it down on paper, or, the focus and clarity of that makes that ability to create those things, out there, like really intense and accessible.
Yep.
And it seems like, like I get people asking me all the time, well, that's why I signed all my light paintings on Facebook with an original light painting made by a human hand, because I started getting a bunch of prompts questions from people asking for the computer prompts to do my images. And, I don't know about you, but as much as I enjoy the final piece, the decisions and the focus and the view, like making those things come into reality is a journey that I treasure, and it seems like a lot of growth, a lot of learning. Like I've learned to see life through those choices and those mistakes. And there's such a metaphor for exactly how you create your own life, and it seems like a lot of that is being taken away, like learning how to write. Like GPT chat, you can type in a few prompts and it will write your whole resume. It will write a story, and if you're not really a writer, it sounds really good.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you never have to write anything, if AI always writes everything you send out, what is there about your own expression? And then we go full circle back to my definition of art and creativity is taking the way that you see the world in your unique fashion, because no two people's universes are the same. I can't touch your universe, even though you can share little pieces, and vice versa. So they're all unique in every way.
Yeah.
And you don't get to, that winds up going away. I think it's all like kind of being filtered into how AI stuff wants you to perceive things. And, the other thing that's kind of really crazy about the world right now is like I tried to do some voiceover work, and I started getting a few jobs here and there to do audiobooks, right? And all of a sudden that got like shut down, and pretty much all of the other ones that I was going to go to, they're now not using human voices. They're using samples of human voices and now using those as AI. So that's pretty much like wiping out whole industries. And I realize that it's just like computers now. There's no more typographers. You don't send out for type anymore and paste stuff down. You do it on a computer. But those jobs, they enhanced your personal creativity. Like even though there were typefaces in the computer wasn't going to pick them for you and wasn't going to put them together for you. And now like it's just, you can tell Photoshop to pretty much piece by piece create a photo and it'll generate it. I don't know if you've played around with any of the new AI Photoshop stuff. You really ought to like stick your nose in a couple of those, man. I think you'll be blown away. It's like, what? How did that happen in our lifetime?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, man. So what's coming up for you?
Well, so this, my year starts in September for the work, because summer, most of the retreat work is relatively quiet. So from September to Thanksgiving, and then from Thanksgiving to late December is a quiet period. And then at the first of the year, everything kicks in. So right now it's like full swing for me in terms of the work. I leave Wednesday for a retreat I'm doing up in the Carolinas, and then come back, and then I've got retreats almost every week.
How long are those retreats, John?
They're about a day or a day and a half. So we spend either 8 hours or 12 plus hours. So a day and a half to do the work with the group. And most of the groups are 7 or 8 in size, in that range. So I like processing each individual to work through their stuff. So that can take time to do that. So that's about the time for each of the retreats. And then the coaching work is one-on-one, usually about 6 months to a year, depending on what they're working on and what they'd like to change. Most of the stuff I'm focusing on, Brian, is behavior work. So it's how to change, when you're talking about the emotional part of it, emotions play a huge role in influencing people's behavior. Exactly. So helping them understand, okay, what's that anger about, or what's underneath that? What's the hurt? What's the shame? What are these emotions, and where do they come from, and what's their messaging to you, for you, so that you're more understanding of those emotions instead of reactive to the emotions. And that can take time for people it's like exercising a muscle at the gym. When you go in, you're not going to, and you start working on biceps, you're not going to have biceps the next day. That's going to take a lot of reps and a lot of visits to the gym.
Practice.
And it's the same thing with this emotional work and the behavioral stuff. It's practice, shift, and then getting them to create a new set of software, a new set of behaviors that serve what they're doing.
So one of the things I like to do with the shows, like offer practical little tidbits like the Jinsen Jitsu stuff, like little nuggets. Anything that you would love to leave us on, and like a practical piece that we could actually practice with ourselves?
Yeah. So in fact, today in a couple of my calls, there was a common thread through all of them. So I'll just go with that because that was a big message for the day. That, and it's on this theme of emotional triggers. So when we trigger and we react, our behavior is like on automatic pilot. So, and most of the time people are in a defensive mode. So they get hit, trigger, react. The thing that I find if you can practice is to understand how to slow things down. Hit, get triggered, pause. That pause is magical. If you can learn to pause and not react. And
How do you get there? How do you get there?
You got to feel it in your body. Your emotions, you will feel them. So getting connected to and feeling the emotion. Right? So most people aren't connected to feeling. So they got to, when I feel frustrated, what does that feel like in my body? Right. So being able to, and when we get triggered, you just ask people around you, what is it that they're saying or doing that's triggering you? Then practice pausing and not reacting. Shift, and the way I explain it to people is identify the emotion, pause, shift, proactive behavior. That pause is a magical space for people to learn how to practice. And again, if they want to know more about it, just do some exploration on trigger work, or go find out more information about trigger work. That can change your life if you learn how to stop reacting and you're being more proactive.
I have a similar vein myself, and one of the things I do to get them to be able to make that pause is that, like, the second they recognize that emotional state is kicking in,
yes,
a word or a short little mantra or some trigger that, like, you can focus on that diverts that tsunami of energy that's trying to happen, right? And then when you're in, yes, I like everything you said. I agree with 1,000%.
So what I use when you say that mantra, what I use is when I get hit, I go, I'm not going to do that to myself anymore. I'm not going to do, because the reactive behavior doesn't look very good when I get into it. So I'm not going to do that to myself anymore. Pause. And then I shift into whatever response I want to, how I want to show up. This is the power of getting your choice back of who you want to be, not who the emotions are driving you to be.
Exactly.
So it's not an easy one to do, but it's a powerful one.
Yeah, but none of the good ones are ever easy. Anyway, dude, we've run through our little chunk of time, man. I want to make sure it's not so long next time. I can't thank you enough, and I've enjoyed spending energy and space with you very, 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 very much, man. It always reminds me why we've been friends for so long.
Yeah, well, appreciate the opportunity, Brian, and continue the good work.
Thank you, my brother, and I hope I'll have you back on with some other stuff too. I think I've got some other things you might be interested in as well. So have a good one. Give the fam a squeeze. Tell everybody I said hey, and love you very much. Thanks.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, we'll see you later.